Imagine a busy construction site, buzzing with activity. Big trucks rumbled, and workers in hard hats moved quickly, building something new. But today, things were different. A large banner hung near the entrance. On strike. The workers were tired of being treated unfairly. They hadn't been paid properly for weeks. Their boss kept promising to fix it, but nothing changed. That's why they decided to stop working and stand up for their rights. They wanted fair wages and safe working conditions. The sun beat down as the striking workers stood their ground, chanting and holding signs. They felt nervous, but also determined. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they believed they deserved better. They hoped their boss would listen and do the right thing. This strike was about more than just money. It was about respect and dignity. Among the striking workers was Carlos, a man from Nicaragua. He was a hard worker, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. He dreamed of a better life for his family back home, sending them money whenever he could. He missed them terribly. Carlos wasn't just any worker. He was one of the leaders of the strike. He had bravely stepped forward to file a formal complaint about the wage theft. It was a scary thing to do, but he knew it was the right thing. He had spoken to a lawyer about a U visa because he was a victim of a crime, the wage theft. The lawyer said he might be able to stay in the United States legally if the government approved his visa. Carlos held onto that hope. Suddenly, a fleet of dark SUVs pulled up to the construction site. Men in jackets with ICE printed on the back jumped out. They moved quickly and purposefully, shouting orders. The striking workers were stunned. The air filled with fear and confusion. Some workers tried to run, but the ICE agents were too fast. The agents began asking for identification, demanding to see papers. Dogs barked, adding to the chaos. It was like a scene from a movie, but this was real life, and it was happening to them. The workers huddled together, scared and unsure of what to do. The construction site, once a symbol of their struggle, had become a place of terror. The strike was forgotten, replaced by a desperate fight for freedom. Amidst the chaos, Carlos felt a hand grab his arm. An ICE agent looked him in the eye and said, "You're coming with us." Carlos's heart sank. He knew this could mean being sent back to Nicaragua, away from his dreams and his chance at a better life. He tried to explain about his U visa application, about the wage theft, but the agent didn't seem to listen. They led him away in handcuffs, past his fellow workers who watched in disbelief. Some of them shouted words of encouragement, but Carlos could only focus on the fear gripping him. He was being arrested, and his future was uncertain. The hope he had clung to for so long seemed to be slipping away. He wondered if he would ever see his family again. Later, at the ICE processing center, Carlos was told the reasons for his arrest. The agents said he was being detained because he was in the country without proper documentation. They also said he had missed a court date years ago, which had led to a deportation order. Carlos remembered that court date. He had been sick and didn't understand the legal papers. He tried to explain again about the U visa, showing them the paperwork he had. But the agents said his application was still under review and didn't change his current immigration status. He felt trapped, caught in a system that seemed determined to deport him, despite his efforts to do things the right way. He was scared and alone. News of Carlos's arrest spread quickly. Local activist groups sprang into action. They organized protests and rallies, demanding his release. They believed the ICE raid was no coincidence. They argued it was a deliberate attempt to break the strike and intimidate the workers. "This is union busting, plain and simple," shouted Maria, a leader of one of the activist groups, at a press conference. "They're targeting Carlos because he stood up for his rights and filed a complaint against wage theft." The activists pointed out that the raid happened just days after Carlos filed his complaint, raising suspicions about the timing. They vowed to fight for Carlos and all the workers who were being exploited. They saw this as an attack on the entire community. The U visa is a special type of visa that the United States offers to victims of certain crimes who have suffered mental or physical abuse and are willing to help law enforcement investigate those crimes. Wage theft, like what Carlos experienced, can sometimes qualify as a crime for U visa purposes. To be eligible, Carlos needed to show that he was a victim of wage theft that he suffered because of it, and that he was helping the authorities investigate. By filing the formal complaint, he had taken the first step. The government would need to determine if the wage theft was serious enough and if Carlos's cooperation was valuable to their investigation. It's a long and complicated process, but it offered Carlos a chance to stay in the U.S. legally. Carlos faced a difficult legal battle. On one side, ICE was trying to deport him because of his immigration status and the old deportation order. On the other side, he had his U visa application, which could give him a legal path to stay. His lawyer was working hard to fight the deportation and convince the government to approve his U visa. It was a race against time. The lawyer argued that Carlos was a valuable member of the community and a victim of crime. She emphasized that deporting him would not only be unjust, but would also discourage other victims of crime from coming forward. The legal process was confusing and stressful for Carlos, but he trusted his lawyer and hoped for the best. The construction company, Build It Right, remained mostly silent. They released a brief statement saying they were cooperating with authorities but wouldn't comment further on an ongoing investigation. They didn't address the wage theft allegations directly. When asked about the strike, a company spokesperson said they were disappointed the workers had chosen to strike and claimed they had always treated their employees fairly. However, they offered no specific evidence to support this claim. They also denied any involvement in the ICE raid, saying they had no prior knowledge of it. Many found their silence suspicious, fueling the activists' belief that the company was trying to avoid responsibility. The lack of transparency made it difficult to know the company's true position. The community rallied around Carlos. People from all walks of life came together to show their support. They organized marches, carrying signs that read, "Justice for Carlos," and "Workers' rights are human rights." A petition demanding Carlos's release quickly gathered thousands of signatures. Local churches and community centers became collection points for donations to help pay for his legal fees. Bake sales and car washes were organized to raise even more money. People who had never met Carlos felt compelled to help. They saw his struggle as their own, a fight against injustice and for the rights of all workers. The outpouring of support gave hope not only to Carlos, but to all the striking workers. Carlos's story highlights some important issues. It shows how immigration laws and labor rights can be connected. When workers are afraid of being deported, they may be less likely to speak out against unfair treatment or illegal practices like wage theft. The case also raises questions about whether employers might use immigration enforcement to retaliate against workers who organize or file complaints. If ICE raids happen right after workers take action, it can send a chilling message to others, discouraging them from standing up for their rights. This situation shows how important it is to protect all workers, regardless of their immigration status, so they can feel safe reporting wrongdoing without fear of being deported. It reveals the difficult choices many immigrant workers face. Currently, Carlos is being held at a detention center outside the city. His lawyer is preparing to present new evidence to the court, arguing that he is not a flight risk and should be released on bond while his U visa application is processed. The next legal step is a hearing where the judge will decide whether to grant him bond. If the judge denies bond, Carlos will remain in detention while his case continues. The U visa application process is notoriously slow. It could take months or even years for a decision. His lawyer is also working to expedite the process, given the circumstances. Everyone is anxiously awaiting the hearing, hoping for a positive outcome. The uncertainty weighs heavily on Carlos and his supporters. Initially, Carlos's arrest instilled fear among the striking workers. Some worried about their own immigration status and considered giving up the strike. However, the community's strong support and the activist message that this was an act of retaliation strengthened their resolve. The remaining workers saw Carlos's arrest as a clear sign that the company was willing to go to any lengths to break the strike. This realization fueled their determination to fight even harder. They understood that their struggle was not just about wages, but about fundamental rights and justice. They renewed their commitment to the strike, organizing more protests and reaching out to other unions for support. Carlos's situation became a rallying cry. transforming fear into fierce determination. Maria, a single mother from El Salvador, shared her story anonymously. She had also worked for Build It Right and experienced wage theft. She was too afraid to complain because she feared being deported and losing her children. "They know we are scared," she said, her voice trembling. "They take advantage of us." Another worker, who wished to be called Juan, described how he was injured on the job but didn't receive proper medical care. He was afraid to report the injury because he didn't have legal status. These stories illustrated that Carlos's experience wasn't unique. Many immigrant workers face similar challenges, living in fear and exploitation. Their stories highlighted the urgent need for greater protections and support. Unions play a crucial role in protecting immigrant workers. They can provide legal assistance, advocate for fair wages and safe working conditions, and offer a collective voice to workers who may be afraid to speak out individually. In Carlos's case, the local union provided him with a lawyer and helped organize the protests and rallies. They also educated the community about wage theft and the importance of supporting immigrant workers. Unions can negotiate contracts that protect workers from exploitation and ensure they are treated with respect. They can also help workers understand their rights, regardless of their immigration status. By standing together, workers can have a stronger voice and fight for better treatment. Unions offer a vital safety net for vulnerable workers. The story of Carlos unfolds against a backdrop of intense debate about immigration and labor rights. Some politicians are pushing for stricter immigration enforcement, arguing that it's necessary to protect American jobs and security. Others are advocating for more protections for immigrant workers, arguing that they are often exploited and deserve the same rights as everyone else. There have been recent policy changes that have made it harder for immigrants to obtain visas and increase the risk of deportation. Some states have passed laws to crack down on employers who hire undocumented workers. On the other hand, some cities and states have passed laws to protect immigrant workers from wage theft and other forms of exploitation. The political climate is constantly shifting, making it difficult for immigrant workers to know their rights and feel safe. U-visa cases are incredibly complex, explained immigration lawyer Sarah Jones. The process is lengthy, and there's no guarantee of success. Even if a worker is clearly a victim of a crime, the government has discretion in deciding whether to grant the visa. Another legal expert, Professor David Lee, added, immigrant workers face significant challenges when reporting crimes. They often fear retaliation from their employers and deportation from ICE. This fear can prevent them from coming forward, even when they have strong cases. Both experts emphasize the need for greater legal protections and support for immigrant workers who report crimes. They agreed that Carlos's case highlighted the urgent need for reform. There are several ways to address the issues raised by Carlos's case. Legislative reforms could strengthen protections for immigrant workers, ensuring they have the right to report wage theft and other crimes without fear of deportation. Increased enforcement of labor laws could help prevent wage theft and other forms of exploitation in the first place. This would require more funding for labor agencies and tougher penalties for employers who violate the law. Community support is also crucial. By providing legal assistance, financial aid, and emotional support, communities can empower immigrant workers to stand up for their rights. These combined efforts can help create a more just and equitable society for all workers. Despite the challenges, there are many inspiring stories of immigrant workers who have fought back against exploitation and won their rights. In one case, a group of restaurant workers in California successfully sued their employer for wage theft, winning a settlement that provided them with back pay and improved working conditions. In another case, a construction worker in New York City who was injured on the job fought for and received workers' compensation benefits, despite his undocumented status. These stories show that it is possible for immigrant workers to overcome fear and discrimination and achieve justice. They offer hope and encouragement to others facing similar situations, demonstrating that standing up for your rights can make a difference. They fought hard, and they won. Even in detention, Carlos hasn't lost hope. He dreams of a future where he can work without fear and provide for his family. He hopes his U visa will be approved, allowing him to stay in the United States legally. More than anything, he wants to be reunited with his family. His message to other workers facing similar situations is clear: don't be afraid. Stand up for your rights. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. He wants them to know they are not alone and that there are people who care and are willing to help. He believes that by working together, they can create a better future for all workers. His hope is that his struggle will inspire others to fight for justice. Carlos's story is a reminder that the fight for immigrant and labor rights is far from over. You can help make a difference. Please consider supporting organizations that are working to protect immigrant workers, fight wage theft, and advocate for fair immigration policies. These organizations provide legal assistance, organize protests, and educate the public about these important issues. By donating your time or money, you can help empower workers like Carlos to stand up for their rights and create a more just and equitable society for everyone. Every little bit helps. Together, we can make a difference. Let's stand with Carlos and all the workers who are fighting for a better future.